about running through it? What can he provide for you?
Yeah, a little bit different situation because he's kind of a tweener. He's not a high school recruit. He's not your typical junior college transfer. He's a 3-for-3 guy. He comes in, he has 3 years of eligibility, so he's got time to impact, but he does give us another body and another big body to compete for a job, and he's not a true freshman. It's not like Antonio Shelton, who's coming in as a true freshman trying to play D-tackle in the Big Ten. He's a little bit older than that, a little bit more mature, so he brings some of that. And I think obviously Terry Smith, coaching him in high school and them having background and history was helpful for us as well. So gives us kind of a little bit older guy to come in and have a chance to compete.
You mentioned that Saquon was deserving of all the talk that he's getting. What makes him such a special talent in your opinion?
Well, I think, there's a lot of players at a lot of different positions that may have one or two characteristics that you get excited about. So, it's a running back who's real fast, or a running back who maybe is short but is elusive. You find guys that can run for power but can't make you miss. He's a guy that, in my 22 years, has probably the most traits, desirable traits that you're looking for. Body type, athleticism, mentality, can run for power, can make you miss, can catch the ball. Some guys, you may have an undersized back. Well, an undersized back better have great ball skills so you can take advantage of him in the passing game. Well, some guys don't. He's got a number of traits that you look for. So you're checking off your list of things you're looking for. There's not too many of those characteristics or traits that he doesn't possess.
Do you think at a young age, or only a year in, he can already be one of the better running backs in the conference in the country?
Yeah, I think he is. I don't think there's any argument that he is that. And he didn't even play much the first couple games of the year because he was just like a typical freshman running back. There was still a lot that he had to learn in terms of protections and other things like that. So, the thing that's exciting, not only for him, but for our offense as a whole and for our offensive coordinators, just there's a lot of pieces of the puzzle. It's a great situation to break in a new quarterback. You got a much more experienced offensive line, more depth than we've had at that position. You got experience at wide receiver, which is going to help our running back. You got more experience at wide receiver, it's going to help our quarterback. And then, the depth and talent that we have at the running back position as well. So I think all those things are going to be good for everybody. That was a lot of things that me and Joe Moorhead talked about when I hired him, is the timing is really good. The timing is good for Penn State. The timing is good for Joe Moorhead. We're back to the 85 scholarships. Joe's coming in at the right time.
Miles Sanders, where do you think he's going to fit into that picture? And will you guys give him a shot on special teams?
Yeah, we'll see. Miles is coming in at a position where we have depth. There's obviously a lot of confidence in Saquon Barkley, but there's also a lot of confidence in Mark Allen. There's a lot of confidence in Andre Robinson. And then also now you bring in Miles Sanders, who you could make the argument was rated the number one running back in the country coming out of high school. So that's the ideal situation. You got depth, you got talent, you got experience. He'll have a chance. If he comes in and he's the best running back, he'll be the best running back. He'll play. If he can help us on special teams, that's something that Saquon has talked about wanting to do. He studied McCafferty at Stanford, and the way that guy impacts the game in so many different ways. Saquon would like to do that. So, we need to get our guys in position to make plays. We have a little bit more flexibility doing that now, because before, if you played Saquon at kick return and something happened and you didn't have another running back ready to go in the game, same thing at quarterback. All these things kind of factored into a lot of the decisions we made because of our lack of depth. So it's different now.
Will you give Saquon a shot then on special teams?
Oh, yeah.
James, you have some guys who are going to try it and use different positions to start camp, maybe from where they were in the spring.
Yeah, I think you'll see some moving parts on the offensive line because we were experimenting with some things during the spring, so you'll see some moving parts there. I think a lot of the other moves have already kind of happened. I think you guys have been aware of some defensive ends moving the D tackle. I think you guys know that with Kevin Givens and things like that. With I think you guys are aware that Jonathan Thomas moved from running back to linebacker for a number of reasons. The depth that we have at running back, and then Jonathan's the one guy probably body-wise could move to another position and handle it. And then I'll never forget, when we were recruiting him, talking to his high school coach, and his high school coach was emphatic that he could play running back or defensive back. And he said defensive back at the time, but I think it's probably more for that outside linebacker position. It's the right fit. So not a whole lot more than what I think you guys already know.
That was Thomas's coach who said that?
Yes.
Sorry, okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
85 right now. What is the number?
Yeah. No, we're not at 85, but I've been throwing the 85 number out because most people aren't exactly at 85 unless you're in the business of over-signing like crazy, which will never be that aggressive to get to the 85, because if you're willing to be that aggressive to get to the 85, then you're also going to have to be willing to have some tough conversations for the years that you're over. I think you have to be very careful doing that. So we're close. I think we had this discussion the other day. I don't have the number for me. I think we're like 82 or something like that. What you have to decide is if you're going to put a walk-on scholarship. I always think you have a couple different situations. You have a scenario where a guy's a senior. You can put him on scholarship, and you're going to get that scholarship back. Or you have to decide if it's a walk-on who's an underclassman, is that guy as valuable as going out and signing a guy out of high school? And that's the decision you have to make. So we've been able to kind of do both. And we'll just kind of look at those situations and see how they play out. We did it already a little bit in the spring, as I think you guys are aware of. Yeah, I don't think it's the norm. I think an offensive lineman playing as a freshman is always the exception. I do think we have some guys that, talent-wise, may have the chance to do it. And then also, they've come in a little bit further along in their development stage. You got Noah Bay, who I think showed up at Penn State at 239 pounds, or somewhere around there, 240 or something like that. And then you have the Michael Menitz showing up at 285, 290. Same with Will Fries, 285, 290. And then guys that were on campus at mid-semester. So I think they could factor in. I think the ideal situation, Connor McGovern, I think the ideal situation is you'd like to be able to redshirt those guys if you can. I think at the O-line, that's always the best situation for you. But if one of those guys happens to be the best, give us the best chance to be successful, we'll play them. We'll play them. I do think we're at a little bit different point now than we were 2 years ago, where we have 17, I think, scholarship offensive linemen. I think we had 5 300-pounders when I got the job. I think we have 12 300-pounders now. So we're just at a different point from a development standpoint. That's my daughter Shola trying to FaceTime me. I apologize. I think the other thing, is that we have we made some decisions in our first 2 years that, I don't know if a lot of other people would have made decisions. So when you're at 65 scholarships, a lot of people, I think, would have played every single one of the freshmen, just because you don't have enough bodies. Well, we made the long-term decision to redshirt guys. Even last year at 75 scholarships, a lot of people would have played those freshmen. We made the decision to redshirt as many of them as we possibly could. Again, everybody wants short-term results, but I felt like that was in Penn State's best interest long-term. So, we'd like to try to do that again, but we'll see if there's a number of guys that think could help us. I know Cam Brown's a guy right now that people have been impressed with at linebacker, plus we're a little thin at that position. So, that will factor into it as well.
You talked about the impact that your experienced offensive players can have on a new quarterback coming in. What kind of impact can that new quarterback have on some of these guys?
Well, I think that's to be determined. When you haven't had a guy play, obviously Trace played well in the second half of the bowl game, and I think that was helpful for him, that experience. But until they're out there playing game in and game out, rep in and rep out, it's hard to tell. I do think the one probably difference is, the two quarterbacks that are competing for the job are very mobile. So now we're adding the aspect to our offense that you got a quarterback that can hurt you with his legs. So that's going to have a big impact on the running back. So you're handing the ball off on an inside zone from the gun to the running back, and that defensive end and that backside outside linebacker now have to respect that, and it slows them down because if the quarterback pulls the ball and goes out the backside, they got to be there to defend it. So it slows everybody down, especially the back half of the defense, the backside safety, the backside corner as well. So I think that will have an impact as much as anything.
Go play on you that maybe people are putting pressure on you to really succeed this season and kind of, meet those very high expectations?
There's been unbelievably high expectations since the day we got here. That has not changed. That's what you have at a place like Penn State. We knew that coming here. We've embraced that. There's no doubt about it. But I think myself, the administration, the former coaching staff, everybody kind of was aware of what we were doing our first 2 years and the plan long term of how we were approaching it.
Going back to Cam Brown, is he a guy that you think could slide down in the future? I mean, he's a pretty tall kid already, features-wise, maybe.
Yeah, I think when we initially were recruiting him, we recruited him as an outside linebacker who could potentially grow into a defensive end. But if you see him, I don't know. You never know. He is legitimately 6'5". I mean, for example, you look at Irving and you look at Juwan Johnson. Those two guys look like giants. Those guys are both 6'3", they're just under 6'4". He's 6'5", so legitimately barefoot. So he does have tremendous growth potential, but he's not the broadest guy. I think he's about 210 pounds right now, which is big enough to play outside linebacker. You'd like him a little bit bigger than that. But will he ever be 260 pounds? Probably not. But you never know. I mean, Noah Bay, 240 pounds, is now 300. You never know how guys are going to develop. But his frame, I saw, those guys all came over to my house for a barbecue when they first got here, and they were playing basketball. He took his shirt off. He's got more sets of abs than I've ever seen. His abs start up here and they go all the way down. He's got like 15 sets. It looks kind of freakish. And I think I was kind of freaking him out because I was kind of staring at him because his body is unbelievable. So ripped up, so defined, so athletic. We've got a number of guys like that. So I think he's an ideal outside linebacker in terms of having the length and the athleticism and the movement that we're looking for.
James, you've got 3 teams in your division ranked in the top 20 preseason right now. How do you assess just the strength of each division? Is it as good as it's been since you've been here?
Yeah, I think you look at the Big Ten East with Penn State, with Michigan, Ohio State, all on the same side of the conference. It's very different than the legends and the leaders that it was before. That's changed the dynamics in our conference. That's changed the dynamics at Penn State. Something that's not talked about a whole lot, but that's changed things. I think if you look at the SEC, you could make the argument with the SEC West, I guess it is, and the Big Ten East. You can make arguments. Those two are probably good as anywhere in the country. The amount of success in bowl games, national championships, things like that, recruiting, very, very competitive.
James, in the quarterback race, what do you see as the strengths of each guy? And do you plan to play it up throughout training camp, or are you going to come to this spot during training camp where you're going to say, this guy's the winner?
It really just depends. I mean, I think what you're looking for is you're looking to give them enough time to truly compete for the job. Everybody made a big deal about the spring game, which I don't think is fair. I think you guys have heard me say that before. You got Tommy Stevens with the 2 offense going against the 1 defense. You got Trace with the 1 offense going against the 2 defense. That's not a level playing field. It's not the best way to make decisions. So we want to give them a legitimate chance to compete. If it's obvious after week 2, we'll make the decision. If it's the week of game week, we'll make the decision. But there was a gap at the end of spring ball. We want to give Tommy the chance to close that gap. We want to give Trace the opportunity to keep that gap and just see how it plays out. But it should be obvious to everybody who the guy is. And whenever that time comes, we'll make the decision.
What do you see as the strengths of the 2 guys?
To be honest with you, I think they're very similar. They're both very athletic. They both can make plays in all 3 phases, arm, mind, and feet. Trace has just been preparing as the backup quarterback for 2 years, so he's mentally further along than Tommy. That's not a knock on Tommy. He just hasn't been in that position. As much as you tell guys to prepare as if you were the starter, they don't. And when you're Trace McSorley and you're the number 2 quarterback, and if Hack goes down, you're going in the game. you approach that differently than knowing you're third and a definite red shirt. So we'll see. We'll see. But I think they have similar strengths. I think the one thing that's different is Trace is ahead experience-wise and knowledge-wise, but Tommy has similar athleticism to Trace, except he's 6'3", almost 6'4", 225, 30 pounds. Probably looks more like what you would say a traditional quarterback. But there's been a lot of quarterbacks Trace's body type that have been successful in college football.